The river had not found its shine. The ropes were wet and black, and fog lay low along the posts, where mornings turn men back. You stood beside the ticket chain, with tar upon one sleeve, a pouch of fares against your waist, too still to make believe. The gulls cried over pilings there, a crate slid on the floor, and every coat along the rail brought April to the shore. An old man came with one brown cane, his hat held to his chest. The ferry bell had warned us once, the deckhands called the rest. You saw his foot test empty air between the dock and prow, then took the plank with both your hands and laid it gently down. Lay the plank slow, lay the plank slow, not for show and not for thanks, but so the week may go. Lay the plank slow. I watched the river wait, and saw how grace can make a bridge from ordinary weight. The captain checked his pocket watch, a truck coughed near the shed, a woman tied her scarf again and turned her face ahead. You held the rail while he crossed through, not speaking of his pride, then lifted up his market bag and set it just inside. He nodded once and found a bench. The bell rang clear and thin. You pulled the plank back from the dock before the tide came in. My own fare lay warm in my glove, my errand plain and small, but something in that careful pause had changed the landing all. No one will name the river boards, the rope, the chain, the bell, or count the small delaying acts that help a person well. Yet some work holds the world in place by giving time its due. A plank set down before a step, a hand that thinks it through. Lay the plank slow, lay the plank slow, till the hurried morning learns what patient waters know. Lay the plank slow, no ribbon, rose, or flame, only a crossing made with care, and no one called by name. The ferry moved, the dock grew pale, the fog began to clear, and on the wet boards where you stood, that quiet bridge stayed near. dusk lamp, the wall clock nearing 2, and rain along the tin roof seams kept tapping something through. You sat before the switchboard there, with pencils in a jar, the cotton cords in hanging rows, the town asleep and far. A doctor called from County Road, his voice came thin and crossed. A mother in the hospital had asked before she lost. Her son was somewhere west of Rome on work no train could mend. You marked the slip, then kept one jack reserved until the end. You let the other callers wait, then watched the small lights burn as if a life could hold its breath, until a voice returned. Hold the line clear, hold the line clear. Let no idle word come in where one boy must appear. Hold the line clear, no one in town would know how carefully you guarded space for love to travel slow. The night clerk asked for Bedford, Maine. A farmer tried the mill. The rain went hard against the roof, then softened on the sill. You answered each with quiet hands, then moved the cord aside, so nothing crossed that waiting place where distance had to ride. At 3, the overseas call came back, a crackle, then a name. You leaned close to the mouthpiece there and did not sound the same. Hold on, you said, and patched him through, your finger on the key. And all the room grew still enough to hear what could not be. You looked away before they spoke, but left the circuit true. The rain kept time for every word that passed because of you. Hold the line clear, hold the line clear, till the miles grow small enough for one voice to come near. Hold the line clear, plain work beneath the light. Yet all of October leaned in close across that wire tonight. Some partings where no station smoke, no waving from a door. They wait inside a numbered room and ask the wires for more. And some hands know the mercy of doing less, not more, keeping the world from speaking until one voice comes ashore. Hold the line clear, hold the line clear, for the word that has to find the one who needs to hear. Hold the line clear, I saw your hand stay still, and learn that silence held with care
The pie case held one lemon slice. The grill was cooling blue, and fly paper above the fan kept turning as it knew. You wiped the counter end to end with water on your sleeve. The coffee urn gone nearly dry, the night too warm to leave. A trucker paid and touched his cap. The screen door gave a cry, and all the road beyond the glass went empty by and by. I stayed beside the corner stool, my hands around one cup, pretending I was waiting out the heat that wouldn't lift. You found a nickel near the till, then crossed the checkered floor and fed it to the jukebox there, as if the room need more. The nickel in the jukebox, silver into song, was only meant to keep the place from noticing so long. The nickel in the jukebox, I watched your hand let go and heard the kind of music that makes leaving move slow. The record turned behind the glass, a trumpet entered late. The sugar bowl stood shining there like guests who meant to wait. You leaned against the pie case edge and listened without show, then wrote the last order of the night where no one else would know. Years later, I remember still the fan, the blue lit chrome, the way that borrowed little tune made one booth feel like home. You never asked me why I stayed, I never told you plain. The road outside was empty then, but not empty in the same. Some nights do not announce themselves as anything to keep. They pass through cups and closing signs, through tired hands and heat. Yet one small coin can mark the hour before the lights are dim, and give a man one song enough to know what followed him. The nickel in the jukebox, falling out of sight, still turns somewhere behind my years in that roadside August light. The nickel in the jukebox, no vow, no kiss, no claim, only your hand choosing a song I never learned to name. The fan slowed down, the record clicked, the screen door held its seam, and in the chrome before it went dark, your reflection kept the dream.
Twilight clung to window glass. The floorboards held the blue. A magnolia breathed below, where dawn was coming through. The canvas waited pale and still. The jars were lined in gray. My silhouette beside the pane looked softer with the day. No footsteps stirred the little room. No word had yet begun. Only the rag, the brush, the hush, and one unopened sun. The first gold on glass lay quiet on the jars and wall, and made the little room seem all. The first gold on glass. A teardrop trembled near my hand, then vanished in the light. The rooftops gave their last faint blue and yielded up the night. I did not lift the waiting brush. I only stood and knew some gentle things arrive on earth before we ask them to. A reverie moved through the room, so warm, so faint, so slow. The starlight left the window pane to let the morning grow. No serenade came through the street. No banner met the sky. Only a little golden hush and one awakening sigh. And then I knew how beauty starts. Not trumpets blaze or cry, but where a common pane of glass lets one kind hour go by. The first gold on glass lay quiet on the jars and wall, and made the little room seem all. The first gold on glass. At last I laid the color down. The room grew mild and wide. Still one warm line upon the pane kept morning close The dome was dark before the show. The seats held winter air, and on the desk beside the charts, the little stars lay bare. You stood beneath the lowered sky with chalk upon your sleeve, the brass plates stacked in careful piles, too still to quite believe. A row of coats along the rail gave November to the room, and somewhere in the lobby hall a school bell lost its tune. The children waited 2 doors down, their mittens in a heap, their voices bright enough to wake the painted heavens from sleep. You checked the map, then stopped your hand and frowned, but only slight, for Orion's belt was missing one small borrowed point of white. You found it near the projector base, no bigger than a seed, a white pin fallen from the sky where no one else would heed. You lifted it between 2 nails, then climbed the narrow stair and set it in the velvet dark as if it answered there. A boy outside began to ask if Mars was truly red. The usher hushed the waiting line, the clock moved on ahead. You stepped back once to judge the place, not proud and not for show, and all at once that paper night had somewhere else to go. No one would know the sky had failed by such a little mark. The children would have watched the stars and never missed the dark. But there are hands that mend a world before the lights begin, and give the farthest things their names by putting small things in. Orion was missing only one pale spark, only one quiet point of care against a borrowed dark. Orion was missing. You set the heavens true and made a room of waiting eyes look up because of you. Orion was missing, then found beneath your hand, not moon, not vow, not golden flame, but something made to stand. Orion was missing. I saw the lesson clear. A sky can turn more merciful when someone notices here. The lights went down, the children gasped, the dome began to glow, and in his belt one little star held all the dark in row.
The chairs are turned against the wall, the spoons lie still in tins. A fly taps once against the screen, then settles where it spins. All summer long you cross this room with pictures cool as wells, set peaches down in white chip bowls and answered supper bells. The boarders came with sandy cuffs, with postcards, hats and sun, and every place was marked by you before the meal began. You folded napkins edge to edge, not hurried, not delayed, and wrote our names in pencil light, too neat to be a trade. Now half the trunks are on the porch, the children called in twice. The last excursion boat has passed, the tea grows weak in ice. You clear the blue glass pickle dish, you stack the plates in pairs. You shake the crumbs from off the cloth and smooth the backs of chairs. My own name waits beside your hand, half hidden in the fold. And all at once that small gray line looks harder to behold. No one who watched you mark the seats would think it more than that. A boarding house at summer's edge, a ledger, jam and hats. Yet years of ways of sounding first in objects used each day. The thing that served the table well is often what will stay. The napkin with your name, the napkin with your name. I thought it only meant your place was kept till evening fell. But now the porch is full of leaving, and the room grows strange with breathing, and a pencil mark can hold a season far too well. The napkin with your name, the napkin with your name, the napkin with your name still lies beside the sugar bowl after the dish is dry. Not lace, not silk, not some grand token, only paper folded, spoken by the hand that knew where every soul should lie. The napkin with your name, the napkin with your name. You tuck it in the sideboard drawer with twine and candle stubs, and from the kitchen comes the sound of one last pan in tubs. Outside the screen door lifts and falls, the road goes pale and long, and in that drawer a little square keeps where the summer's gone.
Below, the druggist draws the shade. The stair smells faint of snow. Upstairs, the little signal lamps begin their evening glow. The galoshes by the stove leave commas on the floor. 3 folded slips lie face side down beside the wicket door. You sit before the walnut board with chords in black and red, one sleeve turned back above the wrist, one pencil at the ledge. The county bells come thin and quick. You answer without haste and fit one shining plug to one as neatly as to lace. I came to ask for Dexter 5, a simple call, no more. But heard you say, go on, she's there, and closed the booth door. A mother from the Ridge Road line, a grocer by the square, someone whose voice kept breaking up because the snow was there. You held the circuit breathing soft while all the shops below went dark one after one along the street under the snow. The line stayed open, the line stayed open. Past the hour, the druggist turned his window shade, till every far-off halting word found the ear for which it stirred, and no one had to leave the night half made. The line stayed open, the line stayed open. There are hands that carry parcels, there are hands that hem and mend, there are hands that keep a wire from breaking at the end. You never heard the whole of it, you never asked to know, yet something in the way you waited taught the voices how to go. The line stayed open, the line stayed open, long enough for one last yes and one more county name. And when at last you drew the cord, the room was only wood and board. But I had seen how kindness works without a sign or flame. The line stayed open, the line stayed open. You wound the falling chords in loops, set both receivers down. The snow kept whitening at the curb, the clock hands crossed the town. I never placed my call that night, I stood until you rose, and all the way home every wire seemed humming through the snow. The elephant house woke before the ticket gates were wide, with straw dust in the rafters high, and October kept inside. She came along the iron rail with apples in a pail. Her sleeves rolled back, her step so soft it hardly touched the scale. The younger ones were restless there, they swung their trunks for more. Their chains rang once against the posts, their shadows crossed the floor. But in the farthest corner stall, where morning entered late, the old one stood and waited still beside the wooden gate. sweetest broken piece and gave the old one last. Half an apple later, no crowd, no call, no claim, only one hand remembering who answered to a name. The keeper checked the water trough, then brushed the rope aside. A school bell rang beyond the park, the city stretched outside. She split one apple with her thumb, where age had made it brown, then held it up with patient palm and never hurried down. The old one took it carefully, as if the world were thin. Her great gray head bent lower there and trusted what was in. No one was there to photograph, no child was there to see, only straw and iron hooks and one small courtesy. Half an apple later, soft beneath the rind, was not enough to fill the day, but more than being kind. Half an apple later, the house grew still and wide, and all that morning seemed to lean toward what she set aside. Some faith is made of larger things, of vows and bells and art, but some is kept in pails at dawn and carried part by part. The world may feed the young and bright and praise the quick parade, yet love is often what remains when something small is saved. The gate swung open, footsteps came, the children filled the sun, and in the corner, chewing slow, the old one kept that one.
The optician's bell had hardly rung, the streetcars thinned toward 5, and dust along the counter glass kept little sons alive. He stood beneath the eye chart there, with lenses in a tray, the trial frames beside his hand, the afternoon gone gray. A schoolboy chose a tortoise pair, a clerk wrapped cases brown, and May leaned through the striped front shade upon the quiet town. She came in with her sewing bag, her thimble in one seam. She said the needle looked too small and tried to make it seem a thing that happens now and then, a nuisance, nothing more. But both her hands held tight around the handle at the door. He set the little silver frame across her careful face, then turned the dial lens by lens with unannouncing grace. The black marks blurred, then cleared, then blurred. She laughed and looked away, as if the room had caught her age too plainly in the day. He did not say the years had come, or ask how long she'd known. He only took the pointer down and lowered what was shown. One line larger softly said, "Then we shall find the right." And all the shop grew kinder there around her borrowed sight. Some pride is made of tiny things, a thread passed through the eye, a name read on a medicine box, a bus sign going by. And some men know the merciful can live in where they stand, not changing what the truth has said, but placing it near hand. One line larger, let the letters stay. Let the world come close enough to meet her halfway. One line larger, plain black upon the white, yet something in her lifted chin returned into the light. One line larger, till the blur gives way, till the smallest useful things come back into the day. One line larger, no comfort spoken through, only a careful chart brought down where failing eyes could do. At closing time, the case is shut. The pointer found its wall, and in the glass one lowered line still answered for us all. Twilight leaned on window glass. The room was warm and blue. A phonograph began to sigh, as if the day were through. The velvet chair was set aside, the lamp was turned down low. Your apron slept upon its hook, the fire had lost its glow. You crossed the rug in slippered grace. I stood where I had stood, and all at once the little room went tender as it could. The starlight on the rug lay pale beneath our turning feet, and made the quiet evening sweet. The starlight on the rug. You said, "My darling, not too fast," so softly with a smile, as if the years had only passed to bring us here a while. The record gave a little sigh. The curtains barely stirred, and all the things we did not say were sweeter left unheard. The pane held one small silver thread, the mantle kept its gold. A reverie moved through the room, more dear for growing old. No serenade came through the street, no grand occasion shone. Only your hand within my own, when all the day was gone. And then I knew how love can live without a trumpet's art. In one slow waltz, one quiet room, and starlight near the heart. The starlight on the rock lay pale beneath our turning feet, and made the quiet evening sweet. The starlight on the rock. The record thinned, the lamp burned low, the room grew soft and still. Yet one faint patch of silver stayed, as if it always will.
Twilight leans upon the frames, the lamp is shaded low. A phonograph begins its waltz in accents soft and slow. You draw my chair a little back and hold your hand to mine. The velvet hush about the room feels faithful and benign. The embers breathe beside the grate, the rain speaks on the pane, and all the little things we own grow still to hear the strain. When the needle caught, you hummed a turn the room forgot, and love went on where music stopped. When the needle caught, your slipper finds the older mark, the rug remembers where we lost one winter to the snow, and found one spring in prayer. You smile and murmur, darling heart, so lightly with a sigh, as if the years were folded small and set somewhere nearby. The record slips, then hesitates, One note hangs in the air, a little starlight from the glass falls silver on your hair. No grand serenade filled the stair, no trumpet knew our name. But when the phonograph let go, you never missed the frame. You only sang the absent beat, so warm, so sure, so slight. And in that borrowed thread of tune, you kept the whole room right. When the needle caught, you hummed the turn the room forgot. And love went on where music stopped, when the needle caught. The record thins to whispered dust, the fire withdraws to rose. Still one soft measure lingers on, where only starlight knows. And long after the last note fades, and long after the rain has talked, my heart keeps time to that small hum from when the needle caught.
The hallway smelled of chalk and paste. The bell had just rung through, and in the nurse's little room, the basin held the blue. You stood beside the medicine shelf with cotton in your hand, a ledger open to the date, a chair too small to stand. The playground dust was on his knees, his pride was worse than skin. He kept his chin set hard and high to hold the crying in. He washed the thumb and turned it slow, not making much of pain, then blew the iodine dry before it stung again. A ruler tapped beyond the wall, the class began to add, and all at once that quiet room seemed kinder than it had. He tore the gauze in one clean strip, then folded it just twice, and said the bravest boys you knew still had to take advice. He watched you tie the little knot as if it were a prize, then looked at me and looked away with sunlight in his eyes. My errand there was nothing much, a note the teacher sent. I stood beside the open door and forgot the way I went. You wrote his name beneath the line, then gave his sleeve a brush, and sent him back with both hands whole inside the morning hush. The bandage on the thumb, wide against the school day sun, was only meant to hold a hurt till arithmetic was done. The bandage on the thumb, I watched your fingers stay, and learned how softly care can speak when pride is in the way. No one would call it tenderness, a basin, gauze and chair, a boy who fell beside the swings, a nurse with pinned-up hair. Yet some small mercies keep their place long after bells have gone. The hand that does not shame the wound, but helps the child move on. The bandage on the thumb, neat beneath his cuff of blue, held more than cotton, tape, and thread, because it came from you. The bandage on the thumb, plain as any schoolroom thing, still shows me how a gentle hand can send the hurt back singing. The bell rang out for recess time, the hallway filled with feet, and in your book the morning stayed, recorded small and sweet.
The river had not found its shine. The ropes were wet and black, and fog lay low along the posts, where mornings turn men back. You stood beside the ticket chain, with tar upon one sleeve, a pouch of fares against your waist, too still to make believe. The gulls cried over pilings there, a crate slid on the floor, and every coat along the rail brought April to the shore. An old man came with one brown cane, his hat held to his chest. The ferry bell had warned us once, the deckhands called the rest. You saw his foot test empty air between the dock and prow, then took the plank with both your hands and laid it gently down. Lay the plank slow, lay the plank slow, not for show and not for thanks, but so the week may go. Lay the plank slow, I watched the river wait, and saw how grace can make a bridge from ordinary weight. The captain checked his pocket watch, a truck coughed near the shed, a woman tied her scarf again and turned her face ahead. You held the rail while he crossed through, not speaking of his pride, then lifted up his market bag and set it just inside. He nodded once and found a bench. The bell rang clear and thin. You pulled the plank back from the dock before the tide came in. My own fare lay warm in my glove, my errand plain and small, but something in that careful pause had changed the landing all. No one will name the river boards, the rope, the chamber bell, or count the small delaying acts that help a person well. Yet some work holds the world in place by giving time its due. A plank set down before a step, a hand that thinks it through. Lay the plank slow, lay the plank slow, till the hurried morning learns what patient waters know. Lay the plank slow, no ribbon, rose, or flame, only a crossing made with care, and no one called by name. The ferry moved, the dock grew pale, the fog began to clear, and on the wet boards where you stood, that quiet bridge stayed near.